You haven't seen Dawn of the Dead, 1978? What are you even doing here? Surprisingly, I haven't talked about this one before on my channel. This is a 1978 classic George Romero film, Dawn of the Dead. In case you didn't know, Dawn of the Dead is the sequel to the 1968, also classic, Night of the Living Dead by George Romero. That was an extremely independent movie, and the movie that kind of set the template for the zombie movie. Well, Dawn of the Dead, of course, expands upon Night of the Living Dead. It was made 10 years later, but it really brings it to a new level. In the first one, it's like, oh my god, the dead are rising from the grave and attacking the living, and it's all about people holed up in a farmhouse, and I already talked about that one last year. Watch my review for that. This is the one that really drives home the whole concept of the, well, what we would call now Romero zombies. You know, they're just shambling, walking corpses. Basically people in like gray makeup, right? The zombies, cannibalistic, undead humans, infected with some kind of, we don't know, some kind of virus or space radiation or some shit. I don't know, who knows? Do they ever actually explain that in any of these movies? Because if they do, I wasn't paying attention to those parts. I was watching all the cool parts, and like in this movie, all the zombie gore, all the headshots, you know, there's so many like gunshots to the head in this movie. This movie is exponentially more violent than the original Night of the Living Dead. It's in color, for one thing, so like the blood is actually red in here, but it's more of a neon orangey kind of red, very, very bright, vivid red, which I haven't seen a lot of like actual injuries like this, so I couldn't tell you whether that's realistic or not, but it looks pretty fake. But the effects are so much fun in this movie. Guess I should back up. Talk about, you know, where did I first see this? Well, I think I was about 10 or 12 years old. Watched this on a video cassette. Probably rented it from the video store when I wasn't supposed to. Probably saw it with some friends, or, you know, we used to talk about movies like this on the schoolyard and all these crazy horror movies that had come out in the late 70s and early 80s. Not only was it super gory, but also was funny. Maybe this movie is kind of responsible for desensitizing me to a lot of violence, gore, violence, that kind of thing. The acting in this movie seems really realistic to me. You know, we're introduced to our characters, our four, you know, fundamental characters early in the movie, and we get a pretty good sense of where they're coming from, even just in the first few scenes that they're in. As we see them reacting to this zombie plague and this fucked up situation that they're in, you know, you get a really good sense of who they are. And I think a lot of that has to do with the actors. I think the actors are all good in here, and I think they're well directed. Again, this seems to be kind of an underground kind of movie. Like, it couldn't have had that big a budget. I don't know, because it looks like it's pretty slapped together. You know, pardon my saying so, but it doesn't look like an expensive movie. This went on to be a huge hit at the box office. And this is the zombie movie that really set off the, like, zombie movie craze of the early 80s. Mostly in Italy, because there's a ton of Italian Dawn of the Dead knockoff movies, some of which are actually not bad. Now, it'd be pretty easy to look at this movie, you know, and compare it to the remake, you know, the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead. I have seen that movie, and I did very much enjoy that movie, but it's a very, very different movie than this original 1978 version. I don't know, there's just something about this movie that really has stuck with me in these last, like, well, I guess like 40 plus years since I first saw it. Basically, the whole concept is this. It's people escaping the zombie plague, which is, just tearing apart the city. I mean, the dead are taking over. The cities are in chaos. And so we have our main characters flee to the country or to somewhere else. Somewhere where maybe the plague isn't so bad and maybe we can survive. It's a fight for survival. So where do they go? Well, they end up in a shopping mall. Apparently abandoned shopping mall. Like the first floor or whatever, there's zombies on the first floor, but they can evade them easily enough because they're slow-moving Romero zombies, right? So they figure out that they can hole up in this abandoned mall. So yeah, they make a little home for themselves and they defend it against the zombies and make a little bit of a living, and they stay there for a while, and we see some deterioration in their mental states, I guess. It sort of gets to them, they bicker and they fight, and by the end of this movie, a couple of the characters do get infected with the zombie plague, turn into zombies, but a couple of them escape. Now, I don't want to tell you all the details of this movie because you gotta watch it yourself. You haven't seen Dawn of the Dead, 1978? What are you even doing here? Like, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse explaining this movie to you because you should just see this on your own, and that's like a lazy way of avoiding a whole bunch of research and recalling all the events in the movie. But yeah, you just gotta see it. This has got to be the first movie that I ever saw where you would see somebody get shot in the head, or in one case had their head blown up. Still one of the greatest head explosions in any movie that I've ever seen. I can think of some other good ones though. Yeah, and there's like a whole lot of blood and guts in this movie. It's cheap, but it's effective, and it really tells a good story, and it's like an exercise in logic and also tactics, as well as a study of like isolation and alienation. But surprisingly, the movie does end with a little bit of hope. There's a whole range of emotions going on in Dawn of the Dead. It is not a perfect movie. Of course it's not perfect. There is only one perfect movie in the universe, and you know what that is. Movies like this, and Halloween, and The Exorcist, The Evil Dead, The Thing, those are the movies that stood out to me in my childhood, my adolescence, I guess. Those are the fundamental horror movies to me. Those are the A+ movies. So, of course, being one of those movies, I gotta give 1978's Dawn of the Dead a big, shiny A+. Yeah, it ain't perfect, but it's perfect for me. There's a lot of things I could say about this movie that are slightly negative. The music gets a little much sometimes. It's mostly like this weird, I don't know if it's synthesizer or computerized, and then there's like rock music in it at some points. Then there's like inspirational action music at the end, but it's mostly that weird ass soundtrack. And I believe that the group Goblin was responsible for the soundtrack and the theme music in this movie, where I like it, and it really fits all the scenes, but it's just so bizarre, and it just comes out of nowhere at some points, and it's really loud at some points, but it all works. All of it works. All the performance of the actors, definitely the effects are amazing by Tom Savini. The direction by George Romero is fantastic. The editing is probably one of the best things about this movie, just the way that it's cut together. It's a little janky in some points, but this is a chaotic situation, right? So this movie was made with love, which is probably the last word that would come to your mind when you're watching this movie, but it seems like a labor of love, and I do love this movie. So yeah, Dawn of the Dead, A+, baby. Until the next time, have a good one, everybody.